available at DelaTorreLaw.com. DelaTorreLaw.com is our website. And we've been running a show called One-on-One for almost 2 years now. I can't believe it's really been that long. Past episodes are available here also on the website. It's a direct connection to our YouTube page. As you can see, we got people like Abby Gofredo from Mortgage Mommy, a fellow member of the Lake Nona Chamber. Arnaldo, our group member, the president, has also been on the show. Also, you can find us at DelaTorre Law Firm on Facebook. Actually, it's facebook.com/DelaTorreLaw as a general theme for this presentation. A lot of things in immigration are in flux. Things are changing week to week, and a lot of it is caused by Corona. A lot of it's also caused by changes in the administration. Either way, if you need advice, you need a consultation, please call us at the law firm. Our number is 888-585-9837, 888-585-9837.
I have a question.
Yes.
Read a little bit about the public charge rule. What is that about?
That is an excellent question, Dario, and one that we're actually currently confronting right now. The public charge rule basically says that anyone who has benefited from a public benefit or is not somehow independently able to sustain themselves to avoid becoming what's called a public charge. So when people immigrate to the United States, particularly in your family immigration basis, you're required to file what's called Form I-864, which is an affidavit of support. Right? That affidavit of support is intended to show that the person who's petitioning for you, typically a United States citizen or a legal permanent resident, is capable of providing a living for that person, so that that person doesn't end up applying for Medicaid or for Medicare or for other public assistance. To this public charge rule, on other applications that typically didn't require this type of background, what's been implemented is called Form I-944. Form I-944 is specifically intended to demonstrate economic independence.
The problem with immigration has been for many years, and there's just things that need to update in the laws. Do you know if the Congress that we have right now is working on any laws to fix a lot of the problems with immigration?
Well,
or just patching it up?
I think that the climate's just not there, and I don't know that anyone's really risking to stick their neck out there in an election year to make a bold move. I think the closest we have gotten in the last 20 years was the Gang of Eight, and prior to that, President George W. Bush came really close. I mean, he had a bill that had already been approved by one House of Congress and then went on to the other. The Gang of Eight, which included our Florida Senator Marco Rubio, he supported it and then was against it. That part I never got, but I'm not going to get into the politics of that. Included a merit-based immigration system, okay, which basically said that rather than make it things based upon family immigration and stuff like that, that we're going to assign a set number of points to every specific criteria that you can think of, such as education, familiar ties, etc., and that immigration would grant residency or green card status to a person who meets a threshold number of points. The the president right now, in some of the readings that I've had in the last week and a half, has kind of mentioned this merit-based system. And it would be amazing to me, and I would love it, if there was some kind of bipartisan support and a bipartisan bill that actually brought Democrats to the Republican and finally try to fix this problem of immigration. But going back to the basic problem with immigration is the bureaucracy. I mean, I literally had 2 petitions that were filed together on this premium processing issue that I was talking about earlier. And, March 19th of this year, they bifurcated. They said that you can no longer piggyback an application that may holistically need to be approached by immigration, right, off of the premium processing application. And my two applications involving the same client went to 2 different offices within the same building. And then I make a phone call and they're telling me that those 2 offices are independent and they can't speak to each other. But that's bureaucratic problems, right? And I think that in part there needs to be more of a streamlined approach to handling these issues, as opposed to so much bureaucracy and so much red tape. And also allow people potentially to seal those passports here in the United States, because that's another thing. You're constantly having to send people back to the embassy. In our one-on-one class that we did for this group, we basically talked about the difference between the Department of Homeland Security being immigration here stateside, and then the embassies being the Department of State. And like many governmental entities, the left hand's not talking to the right hand. They're not doing things on the same page. It's a running joke at national conferences for immigration lawyers that if you file an investor application here, and it's mind you, listen to what I'm about to say. You file an investor application, you file an I-129 inside the United States, it gets approved, right? That person cannot travel outside the United States. They have been granted lawful status, but they don't have a visa, right? And then the question's often, well, what do I do with this beautiful piece of green paper that USCIS has given me? Can I go home? No, if you go home, you can't come back in. You need to go get a visa. Great, so what do I do to get a visa? Go apply at the embassy. Go apply at the embassy. And what do they do with that green piece of paper? They don't care. You might as well just throw it away, throw it in the garbage. I think Todd jumped in.
I just want to say that's a very good argument and a very frustrating part. I'm putting the pieces together as you're speaking. So you get the business license or verification here, but you can't go home. But in order to get your visa, you have to go home to get your visa. So it's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? And you're penalized. It doesn't make any sense to me. That's a very interesting caveat that I wouldn't know, being born here. That people have to go through, and talking about jumping through hoops, it just makes no sense.
And I think we have about 8 minutes. So Dario.
Yeah, I had a question. So what if people they're already residents, right? And they're in the United States, but they have to renew their residency. What are some things that they need to be aware of in order for it to get renewed, and some of the things that could kind of like harm that and not get it approved again?
Well, typically residency is granted indefinitely until something breaks that, right? And what are things that can break residency? Remember, the joke is that they call it permanent residence, but there's nothing permanent about it. If you commit a crime, that can trigger removal proceedings. The level of the crime is definitely factored in. If we're talking about a felony versus a misdemeanor, those things are factored in. So to answer your question, when you submit the application, which is an I-90, to request a new card and basically renew the status so that you get a card that has a later expiration date, that card and that application, when you do that, can trigger something like removal proceedings if you've committed a crime.